All right. The stream is live.
Alrighty, guys, we are live on here talking about the NBA trade deadline, which is tomorrow afternoon. The New York Knicks have not done anything yet, actually, at this deadline, but they are expected to do some stuff. But we want to talk about a few things with this Knicks team first. We'll start with the first thing. They're on a 7-game win streak, guys. They were 2-9 over a really long stretch of time. They looked really bad for quite a while. They've won 7 in a row. And not only have they won 7 in a row, they've done it in dominant fashion with an average margin of victory of 24.7 points. That is the largest margin of victory over a 7-game span in team history. So they are really, really looking a lot better now. And quite frankly, what they've done lately could impact what they do at the trade deadline. Of course, they have been rumored to get Giannis Antetokounmpo, but it doesn't seem like that is exactly going to happen. So it seems like maybe they'll be going after some smaller moves, some depth moves that, don't exactly shake up the roster, but improve the roster, right? And Johnny, I kind of want to just pass it off to you, kind of just to kick things off a little bit here. What is your initial takeaway from this winning streak, and how do you think it impacts the deadline?
Yeah, so I don't think we're gonna get Giannis. Let's just get that out of the way. It's clear that that's not gonna happen now, maybe in the summer, but I think the Knicks are gonna be somewhat active this deadline. But I don't see any big moves happening. Maybe they get Jose Alvarado and Yves Missi. In a crazy world, maybe like a Najee Marshall, but I don't expect the Knicks to do too much. And this recent winning streak is, I mean, it's been very, very important because this season was looking like it was going down a very dark path. But these guys finally almost got out of their heads and just played basketball. That's all they just played basketball. Everybody's looking really good. We're scoring the ball efficiently. The perimeter defense looks a lot better. I know Mike Brown said he was going to simplify things on the perimeter. Seems like that's working out. Jalen Brunson's winning defensive player of the game. So this team is really, really rolling right now. The defense has looked incredible, so much better. The offense is rolling. This team looks like it has real cohesion. Cat is starting to slowly pick it up. OG's having big games. Mikal Bridges has stepped up. This team looks really good, and they've been playing without a Deuce McBride. I know Josh Hart and Mo Diawara got hurt last night, but they seem okay. The team looks good, so I don't expect any big moves at the deadline. If I had to make a prediction, I do think we're going to get a Jose Alvarado. I think that's one of the guys we're going to get. So yeah, Jose Alvarado is my prediction.
Yeah, no, and Jose Alvarado especially is one of those guys that I would really enjoy for them to get. And by the way, I did just put this live stream on Instagram as well. So if you are one of the Instagram followers and you're joining up on the Instagram live, I appreciate everyone that is tuning in. And also if you're tuning in on YouTube and X as well, I appreciate that as well. We're on my personal X account, the Fireside Knicks X account, and of course the Fireside Knicks YouTube. But looking as far as the trade deadline and stuff like that, I want to talk about stuff that yesterday, because the first couple of days during this trade season, if we want to call it that, not much really happened. There was not a lot of movement. People started calling Shams washed and everything like that because he was mostly just posting Giannis rumors and nothing else was really going on. But then yesterday, a lot of different things happened, right? A lot of different moves came into place. We saw Nikola Vucevic go to Boston. James Harden, of course, went to Cleveland for Darius Garland. And a lot of other different moves happened like that. We saw the Bulls make a couple moves. The Bulls now have like 8 point guards on their roster. So we know that they're going to end up making some moves at some point during this next day or two. But as far as the other trades are concerned, with the as far as how it'll affect the Knicks, right? With James Harden going to Cleveland, that is one I'm really looking at. And there's a lot of people that have been saying like, oh, maybe James Harden like really makes Cleveland a lot better. And of course, on paper, he's much better than Darius Garland. I don't think there's any denying of that. Me personally, though, I'm concerned about how he and Donovan Mitchell are going to fit. The only reason I say that is because we've seen in years past how James Harden teams, when he's pairing up with these other guards, have ended up in flames, right? We saw it not work out with Chris Paul. I mean, it could have worked if Chris Paul didn't get injured, but it didn't work. We saw how they fell out with Russell Westbrook, and of course now with Kawhi Leonard. So there's a lot of different incidences here with James Harden that have just not worked. And of course, he's 37 years old. He's going to be making a lot of money. There's a lot of concerns, but for Cleveland's sake, they're in win now mode. They have to make a move like that. I respect them for making a push like that when they know they have to win right now, and then Donovan Mitchell might not sign an extension with them. But it's one of those things where if you're the Knicks right now and you're seeing these teams around you make these moves, what do? Right? We know that the Knicks are very much involved with the Giannis stuff, but looking aside from Giannis, because we can talk about Giannis all we want, but I don't think it's going to happen. So when you look at that, right, and you see who else is still around, right? You have these bench guys that we just mentioned. I know you mentioned Jose Alvarado, but there's also, of course, a bunch of other bench pieces that are around. There's Najee Marshall, who's still available, even though I don't know if the Mavericks are going to trade anymore at this point. Jeremy Sohan has been a guy they've mentioned a lot, even Nick Richards. We know that Gershon Yabusele is probably not going to be on this team much longer. So looking with that and stuff like that, it's very interesting to see just exactly how things are going to play out. But what I'm really really looking forward to is just what will the Knicks do. I'm kind of excited for it because I don't think they're going to make a big shakeup anymore. I don't expect that at this point during this trade season, or if you whatever you want to call it, because I know I called for that before for them to make a big shakeup, but it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case anymore. It doesn't seem like they're willing to move on from Cat or Mikhail that quickly, even though for a brief period of time it seemed like things were completely falling off the rails. Things have picked back up now, though, with the 7-game win streak. So maybe they do, in fact, believe in this core. And if they do, in fact, believe in this core, I'm fine with that. The only caveat is that if Giannis ends up going to another East contender, or even if he goes out west to, say, Minnesota, then I might be a little upset because that's where I feel like you'll have missed an opportunity to land a superstar. But if they wait out to the summer, I'm okay with that because I do believe in the summer the Knicks will have a much better chance to get a guy like Giannis because they'll have more to offer. They'll have more draft assets. They'll have more picks to trade and things like that. They'll also be able to, they'll have to figure out some extension stuff as well, such as like with Mitchell Robinson and whatnot. But it's not the end of the world. It's stuff that can be figured out. And Johnny, before we do kind of just transition to the next thing, I'm looking at a comment here from the Instagram that said the Knicks should go after Io DeSumo. Interesting one because his name has been linked to the Knicks quite a bit. And I want to ask you about Io DeSumo a little bit because, I personally think he's a good player. I think he would be a good fit. What do you think about Io DeSumo? What kind of trade package do you think would be needed to bring in a guy like him?
I absolutely love Io DeSumo. Before I get to that real quick, we have a pretty big report from Tim McMahon of ESPN. Although no deal is imminent, the Dallas Mavericks are in active trade talks with the Raptors about Anthony Davis. So that impacts the East quite a lot. No deal is imminent, but the Mavs and Raptors are in active trade talks regarding Anthony Davis. That's pretty big because the Raptors are having a pretty good year. They're going to make the playoffs. So that's an interesting one to keep an eye on. No deals imminent though, but let's keep an eye on that one. But Io DeSumo, this guy I love Io DeSumo. 2 or so years ago, I was talking about Io DeSumo like he was one of the most underrated players in the league, but now he's starting to get the recognition he deserves. I think it would be a pretty big package. I don't think the Knicks are going to get Io DeSumo, but this guy would be a six man of the year type player for the Knicks coming off of the bench. He could operate out of the point of attack on defense. He could fight around screens. He could shoot the 3 ball. He could create around the rim. I love Io DeSumo. I think the Knicks would have to give up that protected Washington pick, that top 8 protected Washington pick, and a few more guys, but I absolutely love Io DeSumo. I don't think the Knicks are going to make that big of a move because I do think they're going to try to reserve some draft assets if Giannis is potentially available in the summer. And I know we keep talking about Giannis, but it is a big talking point when discussing some trade packages for the Knicks this trade deadline because they might want to keep that protected top 8 pick from Washington because there was some report, I forget who, but that's pretty valuable, that pick around the league. That's a pretty valuable asset. So maybe the Knicks don't want to trade that. They're still going to hold their picks, not do too much. Maybe a Jose Alvarado would be a better deal for them. But I would assume who is on an expiring deal, so maybe that lowers the price to acquire him. But I absolutely love him. He's my number one trade candidate, you could say, alongside Najee Marshall that I would love to see the Knicks acquire. But the price I think is going to be too much. But I would assume it was a perfect fit for the Knicks. We struggle to have a point of attack defender. He fits that role. Great perimeter defender. He's having a career year from behind the arc, shooting over 44% from three. That's absolutely ridiculous. Um, I would love Audisumu, but I just think he's too expensive right now.
Yeah, no, and when we look at guys like him, it's one of those he's gonna fit well, right? And first off, I do apologize for some technical difficulties. There's obviously some, delay in the connection, but we'll make it work. We'll get through it. But either way, guys like I would assume it would be fantastic for this team, not just against us, but against other teams as well. He would be it could cost a bit because which is not exactly ideal because that becomes 2 second rounders. But at the same time, maybe other teams do value that. Maybe other teams that it becomes something. As far as him, I would assume it would be great, but I don't know how realistic it'll be. So when I kind of want to pivot towards other more realistic candidates out of just about everybody that has been rumored to us or that has been linked to us. He's about as realistic as it can get, right? So Alvarado, I think, is somebody that a lot of players are kind of underrating a little bit. I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, Alvarado ain't going to do much for us," or "Alvarado's not going to provide much off the bench." I think people are wrong about that. I think Alvarado would be a very, very welcome addition because this is a guy who can defend at a high level, a guy who's active, a guy who is physical. Yes, he is small. He's a short guard. I understand that. But imagine him and Deuce McBride in the backcourt, for example, just giving teams absolute hell on defense. I think that would be fantastic. And of course, Alvarado's a good playmaker. I know we've seen Tyler Kolek, in and out of the rotation this year, but lately he has been playing a lot better. And I know a lot of people are high on Tyler Kolek, and that's fine. But the Knicks are in a win now position, right? Guaranteed. Granted, he hasn't had much playoff experience, but would you rather trust the seasoned veteran or the guy who's a second year player who is still developing a lot of skills? That's probably the season they're in this case. And as much as or anything like that, I think he's an impactful addition. I think he's somebody who would be, a good depth move, somebody that you can get for pretty cheap as well. People are thinking that like you'll have to give up quite a lot to get Alvarado. I don't think that's the case. I think you would have to give up, maybe like Yabusele and or Dottier or even both of them, and maybe a second round pick. But that's about a lot of things are going to still stay the same, right? And there's people that are talking on the Instagram right now that are saying like, let's keep our veterans experience make up for a lot of stuff. Yeah, you want to keep veterans around. You don't want to just make it entirely a bunch of young players. At the same time, I like Tyler Kolek. I like what he brings. I do think he's impactful. I think he can find his way into some meaningful minutes down the stretch of the season or even into the playoffs as well. But again, I'm trying to win a championship this year, though. This is the year to do it. They have a window. The window is. So I would really, really be happy if they can get a guy like him. And other targets that are around too, you have Sadiq Bey, who I made a video about, who I think would be great for this team, especially given how poorly Gershon Yabusele has played this year. And the fact that Yabusele is not even in the rotation anymore. I would love Sadiq Bey. And he's been hooping lately too. He's been averaging like well over 20 points over the past few games. He's shooting the ball really well. He's having a really good week. He's trying to up that trade value a little bit. I know you're not slick, Sadiq. I know what you're trying to do. So, when it comes to guys like that, there's many different guys they can go after. But, Johnny, I kind of want to just pivot back to you real quick and kind of ask you, there are many different targets out there and stuff like that, but there's also some big guys, big names that have still been unaccounted for, in the just trade deadline landscape overall. Ja Morant still has not gotten moved. None of those Pelicans guys who do have quite a bit of value have also not gotten moved. I know there's been a lot of rumblings about Ja Morant to the Heat possibly, and you mentioned earlier about Milwaukee still possibly pursuing Ja Morant. So those types of moves can really impact what the Knicks do, right? So what I want to ask you is, these other teams making moves like that, how does that make you feel? Like, do you feel like the Knicks are not doing enough, or do you feel like the Knicks are kind of just, playing their part, watching how the market's unfolding?
I'm okay with the Knicks not doing too much, honestly. This team is really good. Like, you could take a look at all.
There might have been a bit of a delay there, but I think he was having a bit of technical difficulty there. I think he muted his mic. But anyway, what I was going to add on to is, like, we when I personally see guys like John Morant still not being moved, or other guys being moved, other big names and stuff like that. When I see that kind of stuff going on, right? I
Can you
don't
hear me?
exactly think the Knicks are doing nothing, but I do think that, like, yeah, I can hear you now, man. I can hear you
Okay.
now.
Yeah, something
I'm
happened
gonna
with my
finish
mic.
my point and then I'll let you get back to yours. But
Yeah.
what I was saying was basically, like, when I see like these other teams doing things like that, you know, I do in fact think that, like, it's that, like, maybe the Knicks are not doing much. Maybe they're kind of just watching things with this, that, third. But my thing is, I don't I have always been a proponent of don't make trades for the sake of making trades. And I know sometimes I can be a little reactionary. Things the Knicks don't need to be making panic moves. They don't need to be moving on from guys that, could make an impact right now or even later. Obviously, to go after like John Morant, or they don't need to go after, other big names that are going to cost a lot. Like, they don't need to go after like Laurie Markkinen. They obviously did not go after Jaren Jackson Jr. because he just got traded to the Utah Jazz, which that was a very confusing trade for me. But I mean, I guess I'll just wait. Stuff goes with like John Morant and other guys. The Knicks are pretty much like this. It's either for them, it is Giannis or depth moves. They're not going to trade any starters this year unless it's for Giannis, which is the right decision. They have a very talented starting five, a very talented group. But again, we've always had the question about whether or not they're a title contending team. Right now, they've been playing like one with the last 7 games, blowing teams out of the water. But we want to see how they look this week, because they have a big game against Denver tonight, which is going to be proving a lot. Then they have Detroit right after that, and then Boston right after that. It's the toughest 3-game stretch of the season. And they have a couple other tough games later on this month, because they got Detroit again at some point, and then Philly and Houston later on this month. So they have some very important games, but some of those games are, in fact, most of those games actually are after the deadline. You have Denver tonight, but then after that, those other games are after the deadline. So whatever team they have after tomorrow, that's the team they're going to be rolling into the playoffs with, which, it may be fine, may be great for some, but that's the reality. So anyways, I want to get back to you though, Johnny. I don't want to, cut off your points. I know we were having some technical issues there, but, what do you think about when you see like these other teams making moves, and what do you think this kind of signals for the Knicks?
I'm okay, as I was saying earlier. I'm okay with the Knicks not doing much. It's, as you said, it's Giannis or depth pieces. We're not getting Giannis. Let's not talk about Giannis right now. A perfect and realistic trade deadline for me is a Sadiq Bey and an Yves Missi. That's perfect. I'm very happy with that. You get a guy who is a wing, who has some size. He can defend a little bit, rebound a little bit. He could get you 25 off the bench. Like, we don't really have guys like that. Sadiq Bey could just knock down a couple threes, get a bucket or two, drop 25, 30 points a night if he needs to, right? So I'm fine with Sadiq Bey. He gives OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges a little bit more rest. He gives them some backup, because we don't have that many great wings off the bench. You could say Mo Diawara, but the dude's 20 years old. You can't rely on him in a playoff setting. And then Yves Missi would be perfect. He's young. He's size, which we really need. He could offensively rebound the ball, defensively rebound the ball. He's kind of like Mitchell Robinson, but I'm okay with that. I'm completely okay with that. We need size. I think the number one most important thing for us going into this deadline is size, because say Mitchell Robinson gets hurt, which is a real possibility. You're stuck with Karl Anthony Towns. And that's it. That is literally it. So I think the number one priority for the Knicks this trade deadline is to get size. I think you need another backup center because there's a real world, like injuries happen. There's a real world where Mitchell Robinson and Karl Anthony Towns go down. And then at that point, you're screwed. You are completely screwed. So I think an Yves Missi would be perfect. I know there's been some other names floated around, but say a Sadiq Bey and an Yves Missi, I'm happy. That's an A deadline for me. You're not giving up too much. You really strengthen that depth. You get a guy who could score. You get some size in that front court. That's perfect for me. I don't need the Knicks to go crazy. I don't need the Knicks trading for some, I don't even know, mid-tier star, if you want to call it that. It's either Giannis, which is not happening, or solid bench pieces where you're not going to give up a lot of capital and you could go into the summer with trade assets if Giannis is still there. That's perfect for me. Sadiq Bey, Yves Missi, that's a realistic trade deadline for me. I like that a lot.
Yeah. And as far as those guys go, I would like Yves Missi. I would like Alvarado. But, I know a lot of people are looking for the bigger fish. And trust me, I'm all for that because I'm all for going after Giannis. But at the same time, if they're not going to budge or if they're, going to if the Bucks are kind of just playing this whole like, oh, just trying to gauge the market type situation, then, what can the Knicks really do at that point? It's not the Knicks' fault that the Bucks are being, I guess, non-cooperative, if you want to call it that. I mean, I don't really know how else you want to coin that, but it's obvious that the Bucks are kind of playing this like they know what they can do about this. They know that they can just wait till the summer and get a much better offer from really any of these interested teams. They know that is a reality, that they are able to just wait it out, right? And it seems like as the days go on that that's going to be the case. Now, obviously, we have another 26 hours or so before the deadline is actually official, so that any time between now and then, Giannis could get moved somewhere. And right now, it seems like the Minnesota Timberwolves are really the Knicks' biggest threat to the Giannis sweepstakes at the moment. But with all that being said and whatnot, I don't think the Knicks need to do much at this deadline at this point. If it's not for Giannis, I don't think they need to really do much other than, add some wing depth or maybe even backcourt depth. Just add some sort of depth off the bench because, your bench has been playing a lot better of late. You feel like you might have found something with Landry Shamet. You feel like you've found a consistent rotation player in him. Tyler Kolek could be something. You feel like you got some interesting pieces off the bench, right? But you also want to improve on the fact that the Yabusele signing was a complete whiff, right? You want to have something there. You don't want to be paying a guy $5 million per season to have value, right? And I know there's been some other rumors that overseas teams might be pushing to sign Yabusele, which could then lead to a buyout. That would be interesting. That's definitely something to monitor, but there's only so much we know about that stuff right now. At the end of the day, I do think Yabusele today would be his last day as a Knick if he's not traded today. So I would be shocked really if he's still in a Knicks uniform past the deadline, which it sucks honestly because I want to talk about that for a second because I was very much in favor of the Yabusele signing. I thought he was going to be an amazing addition. I thought he was going to be fixing quite a lot of problems, really, for the Knicks. I really thought that he was going to be that kind of solution. Here, Yabusele last year averaged 11 points, shot 38% from three, 50% from the field, was a very efficient player and impactful player last year. So the fact that this year has been like a complete 180 of that and that he's been pretty much virtually unplayable, it's disappointing. And it's not really Leon Rose's fault or any of the Knicks' fault because on paper, that looked like a fantastic signing. It really did. And it sucks that it didn't work out. He seems like a good guy, good teammate, good locker room guy to be around. But again, they have title aspirations. They cannot afford to just pay $5 million to a guy who isn't playing or isn't playing well when they're, walking that tightrope of the second apron, right? They're pretty much on that tightrope as we speak. So, they need to be able to actually find some way to not only get off of that contract, but also replace that production or lost production, I should say, that they've gotten out of it. And Sadiq Bey would be a good one to do that. Jeremy Sohan, I know a lot of people have talked about Jeremy Sohan, and I don't know how I feel about Jeremy Sohan. Jeremy Sohan is obviously a very elite defender, but the Spurs don't even play him, and the Spurs are about as good as the Knicks are. So to me, that tells me that he would have basically the same role if he came here. And I know there's been another player that's been mentioned briefly. Ian Begley of SNY recently mentioned that Nick Richards was a player the Knicks have kind of kept their tabs on and look possibly swap with Gershon Yabusele. That would be interesting. I wouldn't mind that because I do think the Knicks do. I think they do need center insurance in case Mitchell Robinson goes down, or simply because they have to manage Mitchell Robinson's injury load. So I wouldn't mind that. But Johnny, I want to kind of pass it back to you real quick. What do you think they need to prioritize in this deadline? Like I know we mentioned targets that we both have our eyes really set on, like Alvarado or I would assume, but what area do you think they definitely prioritize? Like, is it the front court, the back, or something completely different? I want to hear what you got to say about that.
I think it's front court. I think it's definitely front court. As I said earlier, you're like an injury away from being really down in the depths. Like it's Mitchell Robinson. The dude has a very like real chance of getting hurt. So I think it's definitely the front court. I don't really care who it is. I just think we need a body. We need a body. Nick Richards is like not good. I'm going to be honest. He's not a good player, but Gershon Yabusele is also not good. So if you could somehow make that swap happen, like sure, I'm okay with it. I'd prefer Yves Missi because I think he gives you a little bit more defense, rebounding compared to Nick Richards, but that's fine. I think front court is the most important. If we could prioritize that, get a body in, then you could kind of go for maybe a backup wing or a facilitator off the bench, like in Jose Alvarado. I love Jose Alvarado. I know a lot of people, like you said earlier, don't like him. I'm not really sure why. He's on like damn near a minimum contract. It's like 2.5, I think. It's damn near a minimum contract. The guy's going to give you facilitating off the bench. He's like a better version of Tyler Kolek, guys. And we love Tyler Kolek. Jose Alvarado is just a better version.
He's a Tyler Kolek with defense.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Alvarado can play make. He could shoot behind the arc. He can create for others. He could facilitate the ball. He could bring the ball up the court. And he's a really, really good perimeter defender. They're both undersized, but he can operate out of the point of attack. He's got that New York energy that we love. The dude's an absolute dog. He's going to bring fight every time he's on the court, which I love. Like, imagine having him, Deuce, Shamit off the bench as our guard options. Those are 3 dogs who are going to defend, who are going to shoot the ball. Landry Shamit's such an underrated defender. I know he's not amazing, but this guy is physical. He gets in between body and ball. This dude is a really underrated defender. So you guys got to give Landry Shamit his praise. He's not just a shooter. So if we could bring in a Jose Alvarado, that energy, that fighting around screens, that throw your body on the line type of guy, I love that. And it's not like he's making $8 million a year. He's like making 2.5. That's an absolute steal. Gershon Yabusele is making more than 2 times the amount of money that Alvarado is. Like, I would love Alvarado. I mean, Alvarado's making a little bit more than Jordan Clarkson, and Jordan Clarkson can't even make a rotation. So I would love Alvarado. And just another thing, Nikola Jokic is available tonight, not on an injury report. Just so you guys know. And with regards to Sadiq Bey, he's making like 6.5, so a little bit more than Gershon Yabusele. That Gershon contract looks really bad. We talked about this a lot, but that Yabusele signing in the summer, we thought that was going to be banging. Like I was down for that contract. He was amazing for the 76ers last year. I was the most excited for him out of any guy we signed over the summer, and it's been a complete flop. I don't want to like shit on him too much, but he's been completely unproductive. He hasn't done anything, and he has a player option for next year. I think that's why a lot of teams don't want to pick up that contract. So that was just a big L. And I don't really want to blame Leon Rose because literally everybody was like, that's great signing. That's amazing for the Knicks. It's just on him, kind of. It's just kind of on him. Didn't really work out. So yeah, not in love with the Yabu signing. If we could flip him for a Nick Richards, sure. I don't love Nick Richards, but just another body we need in that front court. But yeah, to get to your question, obviously, I think it's front court.
It just says a lot about Yabusele's value, though. That guys like Nick Richards and Jeremy Sohan are kind of the guys
like
we can flip.
Sohan doesn't play at all. Like Sohan's played like 4 minutes the past like 10 games. Like, so, and I think we're better than the Spurs, honestly. Like, I think if we like somehow face the finals, we beat them. But like, Yeah, he's not good. So
Yeah, and another thing I really want to pivot in towards, with this deadline talk that we've been having, we even talked about guards today. We've talked about Ayo DeSumo. We've talked about Jose Alvarado. A guy that I really want to talk about here, though, Deuce McBride has been dealing with an ankle injury, or, he dealt with ankle soreness. But we're hearing lately that it might be more than that. CP, the franchise of Knicks Fan TV, I'm going to reference here. He said, according to his sources, now, again, I do trust the franchise here, but again, I haven't heard from the other reports, but I'm going to quote him on this. He said that he's hearing that there are second opinions going on, that he's getting second opinions, I should say. Deuce McBride is on his ankle, and that it might be more than just soreness, which frankly I couldn't believe it because it's been today his fifth straight game, by the Knicks injury report, and you usually don't see that. We saw Mitchell Robinson miss like 3 games at the start of the year. Same reason he came back, and with Deuce McBride, he suffered an ankle, so he's missing games again, and it makes me wonder really, are the Knicks like concerned about Deuce McBride's long-term outlook with that injury? Do they feel like that maybe he is in fact going to miss more time? And do you think that could end up making them want to push for a guy like Alvarado or Ayo DeSumo, or even I don't know if Kobe White's still available, but even a guy like him, I know he would cost a lot more, but I'm just saying, like guys like that, they are definitely going to. I feel like now they might actually be very much in the guard market just because they don't know what's up with Deuce McBride, and it's unfortunate because Deuce McBride is easily one of the team's most impactful players. He's probably their best 3-point shooter. He's been a great point of attack defender, one of the best bench players really in the NBA this season, and we need him for the playoffs and all that stuff. And we need him down the stretch. We need him in many different areas. I know they've been winning these games in spite of him being out, but he is still important to this team. So, Johnny, I want to ask you here. All right, two questions. This is a two-part. One, are you concerned about Deuce McBride's injury? Are you concerned he's going to miss a lot more time? And two, do you think the Knicks need to prioritize, make a strong push for some of the guys we've mentioned earlier in this stream, given that recent update on Deuce McBride?
yeah, so I think it's important that the Knicks get front court and back court depth. I think they need to acquire two guys at the deadline. You need a guard and you need a center. They don't need to cost too much. I don't really care who it is. Just bring bodies into the lineup. And yeah, I'm very, very worried about Deuce McBride. We've seen this across so many sports. Like these guys where it's like, oh, okay, it's soreness, he'll be out a game, and then it lingers and it goes to 2 games, 3 games, 4 games. Oh, we don't really know what's wrong with him. Like I would not be surprised if we get a notification the next couple of days where Deuce McBride's out a month or 6 weeks. I really wouldn't be surprised because when you don't know what's going on and you need second opinions and things are just kind of up in the air, that's dangerous.
I
It's
hope that's not
happened
the
many,
case.
many times. So I think the Knicks need to get somebody because I'm worried. I'm definitely worried. Like this is a professional basketball team in the NBA and they don't know what's going on. That's serious. We've seen this happen throughout sports. Like, okay, you miss a few games and then it lingers and it gets worse. Maybe they're being precautionary, like they are being precautionary, of course, but I don't know, man. It's weird. I don't know what's going on. Like the Knicks don't really know what's going on. Um, so yeah, I'm definitely worried, and I think that's why we need to get somebody off the bench who could do a little bit of everything, like an Alvarado. I think Alvarado is kind of the perfect guy because obviously him and Deuce are not the same player, but they could do similar things. They could both defend quite well. Alvarado is not as good of a 3-point shooter as Deuce, but he's still capable from behind the arc. And we need a point guard. Deuce is not a point guard off the bench; he's a shooting guard. We need a guy who can facilitate, and that's what Alvarado is. So I think Alvarado is the most likely trade candidate. If I had to make a prediction, I think we are going to trade for Jose Alvarado, and I think that's a good move. He's cheap, won't cost you too much. But yeah, I'm worried about Deuce. Are you worried? It sounds like you are. But yeah, I'm worried.
Yeah, and I think Alvarado would be fantastic as well. But I want to touch on Deuce again real quick because we said already on the stream here that Knicks
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
truly do
whoa.
not know what's going
Anthony
right,
Davis to
and
the
we actually
Wizards.
just have breaking news. Anthony
Anthony Davis
Davis
to
just
the
got traded.
Wizards. What?
So let's see. Quote the report right here. Shams Charania just tweeted the Dallas Mavericks are trading Anthony Davis, Jaden Hardy, D'Angelo Russell, and Dante Exum, the Brown, Marvin Bagley, 2 first-round picks, and 3 second-round picks. Now, Anthony Davis is now a
Whoa.
Washington Wizard with Trae Young, and Chris Middleton is now a Dallas Maverick,
Here,
and
let
among
me
other
say something
players
real
as
quick. Let me
well.
say something real quick.
That is crazy. And my initial reaction to that is I don't think Washington is going to be playing Anthony Davis at all this year because they
No.
are actively tanking. They do not want to lose that lottery pick that they have in their possessions. So Anthony Davis probably will not play a single minute for the Wizards this year. However, he could end up playing minutes for them next year if they end up deciding to compete. With Trae Young now leading the reins at point guard. Trae Young and Anthony Davis together sounds like a very interesting duo. But of course, the injury concerns with Anthony Davis and all that stuff. But man, that is one crazy haul. And the Dallas Mavericks, a team that acquired Anthony Davis last season in the Luka Doncic trade, ended up, just trading away Anthony Davis basically less than 30 games with the team, basically, because of all the injuries and all that to Anthony Davis. But the other concern, of course, Dallas just got so many draft picks out of that. They got 2 first rounders and 3 second rounders. I know they could have maybe gotten more first rounders, but if you look back on it, the Mavericks traded away Luka Doncic, and all they got back was a first round pick in Anthony Davis. So Dallas managed to get some more draft picks out of this in return. That is a crazy trade, though. That is a lot of different moving parts. That is not shake. If you look at the Wizards next year, they got Trae Young, Anthony Davis, and Alex Sarr as a trio. That's a pretty interesting trio right there. And Washington maybe not yet, but maybe within the next year or two could be back to relevance. So, Johnny, I want to get your initial takeaways on that blockbuster right there and how it could affect.
Yeah, so okay, apparently the trade deadline is today, I guess. Do they secretly move it to today because everything's happening right now? Wow, that's kind of crazy. I like this is okay for the Wizards, but like they're going to be kind of cool next year. They'll have Trae Young, Alex Sarr, Anthony Davis. That's a really great defensive front court. Say you add an AJ Debanta to that, that's a pretty damn good team. I mean, that's fun for the Wizards. They could be pretty relevant. But there was some more information on those 2 first-round picks. They're not very valuable.
Darren Peterson.
Not very valuable. So as a standalone deal, it's whatever for the Mavericks. But in hindsight, you kind of traded Luka Doncic for Chris Middleton, AJ Johnson, Marvin Bagley, 3 firsts and 3 seconds. That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad for Luka. But yeah, I wasn't expecting this. We kind of talked about earlier that the Toronto Raptors were we're having conversations with the Mavericks for AD, but the Wizards swooped in. They get Anthony Davis. Obviously, they matched the contract with Chris Middleton's contract. Yeah, this is interesting. I think he's going to sit out all year, obviously, because they want to keep that first round pick that they own that we have right now. So yeah, but I still have to kind of sit on this deal. I don't know how much I love it for either team. I think right now they the Mavericks kind of got the most they could have out of Anthony Davis, and for the Wizards, 2 first-round picks that aren't very valuable, 3 second-rounders. Sure, why not? This could be a playoff team next year if they land an AJ Debanta or somebody like that. So I kind of like this for the Wizards. You're going to surround Trae Young with defenders. Now, I still don't think Trae Young is going to be like the guy there. I don't think you can win with Trae Young, but now Trae Young's the 2. He's not the 1 anymore. And say you add an AJ Debinsa into that team, which feels like the perfect fit if they were to acquire a top 3 pick in the draft. Trae Young could be like the 3 on this team somehow. So I like this. This is pretty cool. Any more thoughts from you? I got to kind of sit on it a little bit more, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean everything you said, it's kind of crazy. I really did not expect Washington to come in and make another blockbuster after they acquired Young, but clear that they are pretty much set on those two guys, him and Anthony Davis, kind of leading a young team moving forward. They are set on those two guys leading that group, and that's definitely interesting because that team has potential. But again, just like the Mavericks had potential with the duo of Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis, and it went up in flames, there's the same risk here with Washington because Anthony Davis, of course, we know, an elite basketball player, but really problematic with injuries. So that's something that's a big risk, but I feel like Washington is willing to take that risk just because, they have a lot of young players, a lot of good draft. They've drafted really well over the past couple of years. I must add to that as well because, Trey Johnson's a pretty good player. Of course, they got Bilal Coulibaly, Alex Sarr. They have drafted really well over these past few years. They have a lot of great young talent, and they've started to show some signs of, being um those players at least of growing. Obviously, the team is not very good. The team's 13-36. We just blew them out by 30 literally last night. But the team has talented players, and now they have two good veterans in that group, and possibly some semblance of relevance. But if you're a Mavericks fan, right, man, oh man, what a brutal past 12 months for you. Man, they got rid of Luka Doncic at this time. He looked good for 3 quarters and then got injured and missed the next 30 games. Team was out of the playoffs by then. This year, you get Cooper Flag, #1 pick. You look like maybe you'll be something promising when you get Kyrie and AD back on the court with him. AD ends up getting injured again, possibly having to miss the entire season with that injury that he had. Kyrie Irving tore his ACL last season. Come back. At least Cooper Flag looks amazing. He's looked really good this year, so at least they have a elite rookie that they can build a team around. But man, they were just in the NBA Finals 2 years ago, and now it's completely gotten torn down simply because they traded away their superstar, and it has bit them hard. I've never, I I think a lot of people could see that that Luka trade last year was going to backfire. I did not expect the trade to backfire this quickly.
It's fast,
Like
yeah.
they didn't even make it a full season with Anthony Davis. Not even a full season. I mean, that's remarkable. I really feel for Dallas Mavericks fans right now, and I do wonder what's going to happen with Kyrie Irving now, just because now that team is essentially him and Cooper Flag. Maybe they decide to make them the duo of that team, or maybe they go away from Irving and they go for a young point guard in the draft. Maybe they end up with another lottery pick. Maybe they end up with another top 3 pick and they can land a guy like Darren Peterson and make him and Cooper Flag an elite duo. Who knows what's ahead for the Mavericks? Who knows? But it's clear the Mavericks are in the rut right now. They are in some really, really tough times, but at least they were able to move Anthony Davis for quite a bit of a haul, and they got some draft picks in return. So I can at least give them credit for getting some draft assets back after really only getting one first round pick in the Luka trade, which that still blows my mind that they only got one first round pick. But looking ahead with how this would affect the Knicks in this case, because we've been mostly just talking about the trade itself and how it affects those two teams. The Knicks now have to pay attention to Washington. Maybe not this season because Washington will a lot of it, but next season. And if let's say they don't make the NBA Finals this year, they don't win the championship this year. I think moves like this happening in your conference should entice you to really go all in the summer. If
Yeah, I have
Giannis
a few things
Antetokounmpo
to
is
say
still
when you're done
available,
too.
for example, I think you have to pull the trigger for him in the summer.
Mhm.
Yeah, and like I was saying before, I think you need to pull the trigger for him in the summer if it comes to that, because now you got teams like Washington making these moves, clearly intending to compete, intending to become somebody that can make a run in the Eastern Conference. We saw James Harden just go to Cleveland. Obviously, this past summer, Desmond Bane went to Orlando. Teams in the East are making moves. They are making moves. They're trying to be, better than what they were before. And the Knicks, while I do think they are a better team right now than they were last year, it's mostly the same group. And if they end up not, coming up short again this year, I think these moves entice you to really have to push some buttons. That's what I think. But I want to hear what you want.
Yeah, I kind of want to bounce off of what you were talking about. The East is getting good. People like kind of shit on the East a little bit, but next year the East is going to be good. Detroit getting a year older. Jason Tatum will be back. Tyrese Halliburton will be back. The Pacers will kind of be in the mix. The Charlotte Hornets are looking really good. They're one of the most fun teams in the NBA. The Wizards are going to be good. I mean, let me read this out to you. This is this year's team, not even including what they're going to get in the draft, because they're going to get a really good pick. Trae Young, Trey Johnson, who I loved out of Texas, Keyshawn George, Anthony Davis, Alex Sarr. Off the bench, you have Bilal Coulibaly, Bub Carrington. That's a pretty damn solid team. Like, I think that's on the level of maybe like a Miami Heat right now. Like, that's a good team. You have two all-stars in that. You have Alex Sarr, who's really blossoming this season. Trey Johnson and Keyshawn George are pretty underrated young players. Say you add, I mean, we just talked about Darren Peterson with the Mavericks. You brought that up. Cooper Flagg and Darren Peterson. Oh my God, that would be incredible. But say this Washington team could be like a Trae Young, Trey Johnson, AJ DeBanza, Anthony Davis, Alex Sarr. That's a really damn solid starting five. So yeah, the Knicks need to be aggressive. They need to make the right moves. The Cavs are still in it. They're kind of peaking right now. They know that they got to win in the next year or two. So I think that James Harden move was a clear indicator of that. The East is getting good. Maybe Orlando figures it out next year. Toronto, if they make a big move, maybe they go get a Domantas Sabonis right now. They're kind of in a weird spot, but you never know. The East is getting good. So the Knicks need to be aggressive, whether it's now or in the summer. If Giannis makes it to the summer, we're looking good, because at this point, it's either you win an NBA title or you're very, very aggressive in getting Giannis. Because I think, say the summer comes around and clearly this roster didn't work, you're going to make a trade. At that point, the Knicks do have enough assets to maybe acquire Giannis. Now, maybe Giannis right now kind of knows the Knicks aren't really in it. Maybe that's why he is open to going to the Heat or the Timberwolves, like some reports have said. But if the Knicks are actually in the pool of teams that can be aggressive for Giannis in the summer, I still think it's his number one destination. I still think he'd choose us over like the Timberwolves or the Heat. So the East is getting good. The Knicks need to be aggressive in their pursuit for whoever they want. That's all I've really got to say.
Yeah, I fully agree with a lot of what you said, because the East really is getting better. I think the East is already pretty solid right now. I don't think a lot of people had Pistons East this year, at least not to the level that they're at right now. The Boston Celtics still being hyped by Tatum being out. Same thing there. I don't think a lot of people had that happening. You know what I mean? So as far as, these trades and stuff going on, the Knicks are going to have buttons to press. They are going to have to be able to make some big moves. I think right now they don't need to be right now, unless it's for Giannis, of course. I think, you still need to be pursuing him until you physically just can't do it anymore. But in the summer, if they come up short, it becomes a priority now. Especially like if, let's say, John Morant goes to the Heat, or other big names get moved to Eastern Conference teams.
Whoa,
Same thing,
Jared McCain to the
and
Thunder?
we just got another trade here.
What? That's so
So
random.
Shams
What?
Charania just tweeted Jared McCain to the Oklahoma City Thunder for a 2026 Rockets first round pick and 3 second-round picks. That is one haul for Jared McCain. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I kind of like it for
Interesting.
both
That
teams.
is
If I could give
that's
my
quite
thoughts
a
on it
lot
real
for
quick
Jared
before you
McCain.
get going.
Well, yeah, Philly need to get off of Jared McCain, and the Thunder get off McCain. He wasn't really playing well, and he wasn't getting a lot of playing time over VJ Edgecombe, and the Thunder need more backups, more depth, especially with the injuries that have been going on to that team. Wait, lately. So that's That's an interesting trade right there. That one is not as shaking as the Anthony
Yeah,
Davis trade that
it's
just
very
occurred,
random.
but yeah, that's definitely something interesting there. But back to my initial points and stuff about yeah, no, it is very random. I feel like that's one of those where you know you didn't expect. I mean, you expected McCain to get moved, but to the
I
Oklahoma City
like I
Thunder,
here,
interesting.
I'm gonna say a
But
few things real quick.
I don't know how much that's gonna play into. I mean, the Thunder are already really freaking good, so we'll just
I
have to
like
see.
it for the Thunder. I think it's like it's a low risk, high reward type of thing. Like he was insane last year for a rookie, and say he could get over these injury bugs. Like why not? You have a million draft picks. Why not take like roll the dice on a Jared McCain who's just gonna kind of play his role off the bench. So for the Sixer, I kind of like it for both teams. For the Thunder, you're really good already. You could roll the dice on a Jared McCain. And if he gets healthy, maybe he bounces back. So low risk, high reward. And for the Sixers, you have your foundation with VJ and Maxi. So McCain's not going to really play. You get a first in 3 seconds. I like it for both teams.
Yeah, solid trade right there. Good pickup for the Thunder. Made some big moves, and that wrap up this episode just a little bit. Unless, of course, the Knicks make a move within the next minute or two. But before we do wrap it up and stuff like that, I just wanted to say, for the Knicks' sake of this deadline, watching these other teams make moves, I do expect the Knicks to do something the next 24 hours, whether that's moments from now or hours from now or after tonight's game. I expect a move to be made. I definitely think the move that will be made will at least be moving Gershon Yabusele. I think that's at least bare minimum what they're going to end up doing. Who they get in return, wait and find out on that front. But I do think guys like Yabusele and Pacone are two of the biggest guys to be keeping an eye on as far as who will moved, and of course the targets we mentioned throughout the stream, Jose Alvarado, guys like that, and of course Giannis Antetokounmpo, because you can never forget about Giannis during this time of the year. But I don't think that'll happen. So we need to focus on smaller moves and smaller depth moves, and I think that's fine as long as no other team picks up Giannis and we have a chance for him in the summer. I think that's perfectly fine. But Johnny, before we do wrap it up, I wanted to give you a chance for any final thoughts and any trade deadline stuff or trade deadline reactions, and you know anything else you want to throw out there. Go for it. It's time to do it.
Well, I'm glad we actually got two sizable-ish trades. The Anthony Davis one was fun. That was a bit shocking. And the Jared McCain ones, it's cool. It's whatever. I like what the Wizards are doing. I really do. I think they kind of built the foundation now. And the East is getting good. I'd like to see the Knicks acquire, a guy or two at the deadline. I want to see us get a guard and a big man. I think that's what we need to do. It kind of feels like the trades are starting to heat up. Maybe Giannis isn't getting moved till the summer, and now the market is flooded open and teams are going to make moves. I expect a few more moves to be made tonight. I'm excited. This is the best time of the year. So yeah, I appreciate you guys for watching. Deadline's awesome.
Yeah, this is a great time of the year. I mean, it's a great time for us fans. A tough time for the players, of course, getting traded
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But you know, interesting time of the year. Very very interesting. I don't think we expected to see the Anthony Davis blockbuster happen while we were on this stream, but I'm glad it did, and we were able to give our input on it. But as far as everything else is concerned, we'll just wait and see what the Knicks end up doing, and best believe we will be on top of that stuff whenever it does occur. So be on the look. But I hope everybody did enjoy this live stream. I really appreciate everybody that tuned in. Keep an eye on the deadline. The deadline is 25 hours away from where we are at right now. So only one more day until guys can get moved. So things are going to heat up over the next day or two. But anyways, guys, we hope you enjoyed this. Make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe to Fireside Knicks, and of course, me and Johnny's personal Twitter accounts. We will make sure to link that stuff. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next episode of Fireside Knicks. Peace out, and let's go Knicks.